We would like to welcome you to the Middle Tennessee Cyber Summit. Today we have Michelle Drolet. She's the CEO and founder of Towerwall. I'm going to have Michelle introduce herself. Thank you, Michelle, for being here.
Oh, sure, Steve. Thank you so much for inviting me. I just spreading the cyber security word is my passion. So I have been in the cyber security space, and I kind of cringe to say almost 30 years before cybersecurity was cool, as they say. So we walk alongside our customers both from a people, process, and a technology perspective. So excited to be here.
Now, Michelle, I've been on LinkedIn. I've seen you featured everywhere, and I've seen Towerwall. When did you found Towerwall?
We founded, the original company was founded in 1993. We sold ourselves, and I bought it back in 1999. So we actually did our first penetration test in 1999.
Oh, wow. And see, I've been in the industry that long also, and it's great to have somebody that has been around that long and they are a cybersecurity expert. Michelle, we've got a couple of questions we would like to ask you, and of course, hopefully you can make it down to the cyber conference when we announce that. But here's one of the questions. Can you tell me about where Towerwall sees cybersecurity going in 2022, especially in today's world with what's going on in Europe, with Ukraine and Russia? And not just that, the amount of ransomware and stuff. Can you see or kind of forecast where we've seen it going up? What do you see as a trend at Towerwall?
So when we do crowdsourcing with our customers, we're seeing an absolute increase in ransomware. The increase in ransomware, the increase of the payouts in ransomware. We're also seeing the need for cyber insurance, but organizations not actually being able to get it because they don't have all the boxes checked. Or if they do have the boxes checked and something happens and the cyber insurance companies come in, they're not going to get those payouts. And so what we're really working with our customers on is, I made up a word, Steve, many, many moons ago called pragmatize. And so when we help our customers get out of the firefighting mission and actually create programs around anything that has to do with cybersecurity, we can thwart the bad guys a little bit easier. But the trends are definitely an increase in ransomware attacks, DDoS attacks, and what's unfortunate in 2022 or actually 2020, where the bad actors were kind of hands off on the grid,
right?
We're kind of hands off on healthcare. That's not the case anymore.
Oh, wow. Now, this trend in attacks that you're seeing is a lot of it happened because we are going to see that trend, but during the pandemic, more and more people started working remote. So when you're doing a penetration test now, you guys are doing it and looking at everything that's remote. So are you seeing those remote end users actually being attacked more? And then how do you guys work that in if a company is just sending their people home and they're working from their home in a home router? I mean, you're ensuring VPNs are on, or have you seen an increase in that remote where you have to protect those end users also?
Absolutely. So, I mean, it was kind of a rip and replace, right? So a lot of organizations, say a call center, for example, had everybody in their office, and then all of a sudden they went whoop, and they went out. And so, it put a tax on Zoom, remember? It put a tax on VPNs. It put a tax on a lot of different things. But I was surprised how smoothly it went.
Right. And we went through that same thing too. And that was one of our big worries. And, what about budgets? Are you seeing companies increase their budgets, or do you often have to convince people this is absolutely necessary? I mean, do you have to use scare tactics, or are more people coming to you because they're hearing that news about attacks?
So if we had had this conversation 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I would have said, yes, cyber is a cost center.
Right.
People would say, oh my gosh, why do I have to put antivirus in? Why do I need a firewall? Why do I need to have intrusion detection prevention? Why, and that's not even talking about MDR or MFA or any of that other stuff. Um, what we're seeing now is that all of a sudden there's an ROI in cybersecurity and in the program development, having the right people in place, the user awareness components, the different technologies, the programs, because they're not going to be able to get a customer because of those vendor risk questionnaires. And it's going to stop them from getting that business. It's going to stop them from getting cyber insurance. It's going to stop them understanding where their data is and what type of data, or is it old data from storage and a ROI and cleanup. Right. So there's a lot of different reasons why the budgets for cyber are increasing exponentially, because it's actually driving revenue to the business.
Are you seeing more and more companies train their cyber specialists and their end users? Are you seeing that trend go up also?
So I love that question. That's like one of my favorite questions, Steve, because a long time ago, we created something called the 4 E's, and I'll just share it real quick. So it's evaluate, establish, educate, and enforce. So that first E, right, is that evaluate. So we need to figure out what control frameworks we want to put in place. And I'm going to answer your question kind of in a round robin kind of way, if you don't mind. So that, it's doing the risk assessments, it's creating or figuring out what control framework. Is it NIST? Is it ISO? Is it the CIS 18 critical controls, not 20 anymore? Those types of things, or, different regulations like HIPAA, but figuring out where the holes are or what programmatic things that you need to put in place. And then doing those vulnerability assessments, figuring out where the vulnerabilities are, and then going to that established piece, and then building the programs, implementing the technology, doing the remediation, having the MSP do the remediation, cleaning up the firewalls, doing the patching, all of that kind of stuff. And that third E is my favorite, and that's educate. Okay. And that education piece is so key, because I cringe when organizations say, or a CISO or somebody says, my employees are my weakest link. And it's like, no, they're not. They are not. They are your greatest asset if they can be part of your security team. If they understand how important they are to thwarting those bad guys, actors, or whatever the heck you want to call them, by not clicking on something, not downloading something, calling somebody and saying, I just got this email from the CEO that asked me to transfer $52,000. Should I do it? So those types of things, if we can put that awareness inside our organization, our corporate culture, it's really key. So, 10, 15, 20 years ago, the technology was very limited. But now you have technologies, and I'll name a couple. So Sophos has Fish Threat, Know4 is out there, Media Pro, Proofpoint. There's a whole bunch of different technologies that an organization can put in place now to actually build out a fundamental, solid cybersecurity program. And that's people. So that's the training. So that's the ongoing training, phishing activities, newsletters, all that type of stuff. But it's also, the little snippets of video. Know4 has something called, the Insider Man, coolest video. And everybody goes, what's going to happen next, kind of thing. So there's a lot of creativity happening. And then, just understanding what's happening. So I'm seeing awareness and building out awareness programs really escalating. That was a really long answer to your question.
That's fantastic. Your passion for that is it's amazing. It's amazing. But, where we're seeing that in your 4 E's, I love those, where we're actually seeing the training and we're seeing the budgets increase. but are you still seeing as a trend people getting breached? And I know we always hear about these large companies. What about the mom and pops and the small businesses? What can they do? I know they can do the education point, but in your professional opinion, what do you think those small mom and pops can do, and maybe even those small businesses that just have a few employees or less than 100 or so?
So that's a great question. And it hurts my heart when a small business owner says, I don't have anything anybody wants.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because everybody has something, whether it's bandwidth, right? It could be just having you as a small business owner being a jump point. I'll tell a kind of a funny story. This happened many moons ago, but we were called in because this organization that had, I think, about 15 employees, it was a printer organization. And the CEO I knew, and he called and he said, you know what? Our systems are really getting really slow. I was like, what? And I mean, it's not something we typically do, but I was like, okay, I'll have one of my guys go in and look. And they were actually hosting pornographic sites from brands on their servers. They were actually serving them up because it was open and it had open access. So it's not necessarily just the hacking piece. It's the utilization piece. What we're seeing right now are true attacks on small law offices.
Right.
Just recently, I had a larger law office or a law firm that we work with that represents some of the smaller law firms, where a woman, a paralegal, picked up the phone and they, basically, pretended that they were part of the MSP and stuff like that and said, we need to download this. And so they actually downloaded a piece of remote control technology, which was valid technology. And it only happened that one of their lawyers was in the office at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and that paralegal's machine came on and they could watch what was going on. And so they pulled the plug and, we were called and said, okay, what exactly happened here? So it doesn't matter how large or small you are potentially, you have potential to be attacked or hacked or whatever. And it could be for your bank account. It could be for your customer information. And so, what Steve asked is, what can you do? So just have good computer hygiene, whether it's through your MSP, making sure that they're patching your systems, that you have a firewall in place, that you've actually changed your password on your router. You don't have default. If you can, put in multi-factor authentication, and you don't have to be a big company to have that. It's like your ATM card, right? It's what you have and what you know. That's what multi-factor authentication is. It's putting good, solid ransomware protection on your machines. And, there's home technology. Excelpost has it. They have a home user technology that, some of it's free. So you can use that, or you can do a paid for technology, but there are technologies out there that now can, if you have ransomware, it can pull it out and bring you back to a good state, making sure your backups are happening. And again, if you have one server or no servers, you still need to have a good backup, because if you have good backup, and as long as those bad actors can't get it and encrypt it, then, you can go tell them to pound salt.
I love it. We've worked with local law enforcement for, 20 plus years. Everything you're describing is things that we've seen from a computer utilized for pornography or storage of music, or and they complain about bandwidth.
Yes, storage of music movies.
And yeah, absolutely. And we've seen them go in and do ransomware. So everything you're describing, and just the passion of which you're telling this, and we believe the same thing, that those small businesses, firewalls are not that expensive compared to what you can lose in today's world. I mean, just a couple $100, have an MSP, or have somebody who's talented to put that in that hygiene, 100% on the money. A couple things real quick. I've actually read this, and so is Agent James Cotter with the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security, that a lot of large organizations are getting rid of their SOC model. Have you read the same?
Yeah. So to number one, appreciate everything that you're doing with the education piece in cybersecurity, Steve, because we all know that those folks are really hard to come by. And while some are there, they might not be trained or educated. And so trying to build out a SOC with the appropriate people, keeping them trained, for a small organization, I'm talking under $500 users, to build out a SOC could be a couple $1 million.
All right.
Right. And so there are solutions now, that there are good solutions in the managed security service space, the managed detection and response space, where we internally use a technology and service by Alert Logic, but we partner with an Arctic Wolf or a Rapid7 or an Avertium. There's a lot of organizations that can help be that 24/7 organization, and that internal piece or internal SOC doesn't have to happen. What that does is it lets the security folks inside the organization be able to actually function in a much broader fashion and a deeper fashion, so that they're not going and not necessarily looking at something 24/7. And if it's 24/7, it's just one person. You have 150 people backing you up. So that's what we're seeing, is that organizations are outsourcing much more than they ever have before with a trusted party.
That is probably not trying to flatter you, it's the best explanation that I've heard, where you can get those not necessarily turnkey solutions, but you can implement those solutions and allow that focus. And that's probably the best explanation I've heard. I mean, just honestly, and that sounds fantastic. Here we go. Businesses talk about the lack of confidence in their security posture. And I know it's from the news, what they see. We just had some automotive manufacturers who actually got basically shut down or shut down in many of their places. How do you help businesses, and how can businesses grow in that confidence?
So again, it goes back to that word that I started out with, pragmatize, right? I sit with multiple CEOs, CFOs with a lot of our customers, helping them understand cybersecurity, because it's complex, right? There's a lot of moving pieces and parts, and what makes a difference to that particular organization all starts with risk, right? What is the CEO's risk tolerance? And that's where we have to start. And that's what every organization needs to start. Sorry about that. So that's where we start. And so after that, then you can build a program based on that risk. And again, like you said earlier, everybody is a target, and it's not if, but when. But how do you mitigate that risk? And I've sat with some CEOs that say, you know what, I'm good. We put these 3 things in place. I'm okay. And you know what? That's okay, because that is their acceptance. And sometimes you can do that, but it's education on what's important for that specific organization. And I always say to our customers that cybersecurity, it's not a destination. Unfortunately, it's not a stop and a start.
Right.
It's a journey, and there's always something changing. I've been in this space, like you, Steve, a long time, and I still learn something every day, which is amazing. But what we need to do is make informed decisions for our specific organizations and what's important. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it really did, because when you go out and you educate folks as a CEO or me as an instructor and an advisor. And when you educate them, and it's not through fear mongering, when you actually show them that it's factual, then I feel exactly, and I think you're doing a great job educating our audience today. But just a couple more questions, and yes, it was right on target. With the FTC warning that if businesses fail to address vulnerabilities, how can the businesses keep up regarding their data? And I know it's going to go back to your answers, but when you talk to a CEO and you show them the FTC information as you educate them, and where you're trying to not just drive business for yourself, but to protect an industry or a business partner, the FTC, can you talk a little bit about what could actually happen to businesses if they don't have these things in place?
So, so FTC is one. So regulatory components, right? HIPAA is another. California Protection Act, GDPR. If you don't mind, I'm going to kind of all group it together.
No, you're good. And as you answer this question, I apologize for interrupting, where you say the California, and talk about how states can differ in this, if you could.
Sure, absolutely. So Massachusetts has the MA-CMR 1700, which is a privacy and security regulation that came out, I think, in 2010. And so organizations inside of Massachusetts, and I'll just kind of use this as a broad brush because we're based in Mass, they have to have a written information security program, right? This is like fundamental. They need to have an updated firewall. They need to have endpoint protection. They need to have a user awareness program. They need to have encryption, data at rest, data at motion for protection of Massachusetts residents' information. That is the most fundamental thing that an organization needs to do. So what we say is that, you know, if an organization is following at least the Massachusetts regulation, we're doing something, you know, moving that ball forward. But if an organization, 25 users and or above in the state of Massachusetts, doesn't have those particular things, and there's a couple others that I didn't mention, and something happens, like they're breached, they lose Massachusetts residents' information, the AG is going to come in, and they're going to come in hot.
And do you find, and I'm sorry to interrupt your answer.
No, please.
Do you find the CEOs and the owners of businesses, and they're shocked that even exists? Those laws, like they have no idea.
Some still after 12 years are. A lot do, but part of that is updating on an annual basis, right? So they wrote it in 2010 and it's never been touched since. Now they're breached. The AG is going to come in and they've done over $100,000+ fines. Oh, wow. So FTC is the same thing. The CCPA, it's the same. The California Privacy Act is the same thing. GDPR, there are huge fines if an organization is not following the rules. But following the rules are fundamental, right? Patching, right. Having a firewall, having good endpoint protection. Like I said, putting multi-factor authentication in place, user awareness training, have a written strategy for security. And then when they come in, because you can't do everything. I say to our customers all the time, you cannot drink from a fire hose. So let's put together a 3 to 5 year plan. And maybe we're in year 2 and multi-factor authentication is budgeted for year 3 and some crud happens. We can at least show the regulators on where we were going and our maturity capability model. And that goes a long way. But if you have your head in the sand, yeah, you're going to get in big, serious trouble because pretending you don't know doesn't cut it anymore.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
You know, I don't like what I do I, Steve?
Oh, I can see the passion. You know, when I teach, and whenever I teach, our program has won, I don't know, 10 to 14 awards from SE Magazine.
I love your program.
Spoke before the National Academies of Science, Engineering, Medicine. We have a live sock that our students go in and they get to see that kind of thing. And I try to teach the same passion that you have. And now I have students that are coming back, and I think the awareness, and I'm like you, I think the awareness is totally there. But when we hear about those regulations, that's why we're honored to have you here to, to actually film this and actually put it up so it helps to educate people. And I've met people whenever I start talking about SOX, Gramm-Leach-Bliley, GDPR, or I start saying these things and they're shocked. And then there's other people going, what do I need to do? But our last question. Our SOC sees the increase in hits, a lot of hits, and especially during these geopolitical events and war. Do you think small and medium-sized businesses, are they even aware of those hits? We talked about them. Do they even know? Like if you go in and you set up a small firewall, maybe it's a small business. Do they even know people are actually knocking on the door and they're trying to get in?
I would say probably not. If they don't have somebody monitoring them, then no. I mean, is this the owner of a small business? Are they looking at their firewall logs on a daily basis?
Not a restaurant owner, and I'm not saying that to be mean, and this is really for education. And people like yourselves that's a professional and you can monitor large and huge enterprises.
And small organizations too, yeah.
Yeah. And really quick, it says, do you see small infrastructure, water, electricity, and cooperatives, do you see them as being vulnerable?
So we started this conversation about how the bad actors in pre-2020 kind of stayed away from infrastructure, the grid. They stayed away from healthcare. Yeah, they got it. I mean, somebody just died recently from a hospital hack, right? So all bets are off. And what's happening now too is that they have their own like little coalitions, right? So they're not guys in hoodies, in a basement anymore. It's billion-trillion-dollar business, or soon to be a trillion-dollar business. So it's organized crime, so to speak. And so what's happening and what we're seeing is that this bad group over here has this piece, and this bad group over here has this other piece. And if they put these pieces together, they can go in and do an attack that they could never do by themselves. Right. And then they split up. And so that's the grid. So Colonial Pipeline, I'm not going to name the name of the hacking group, but they got named.
Right.
And they went, whoa. It wasn't us. It was not us, but it was somebody else. Right. And so it's not all's fear and love and war now, unfortunately. And so anybody's a target, and it's very scary that our grid is definitely a target. And we are I feel like we're very vulnerable, and that terrifies me.
Michelle, we really want to thank you for coming in and helping to educate people. And like I said, this is going to be just everywhere that we can publish it. And we'll inform you about the Middle Tennessee.
So, Steve, I have to stop you real quick because I can't leave on that Debbie Downer note. Okay.
So, you're fine.
So real quick. So, you know what? If an organization does what they're supposed to do, or at least tries, if you try to do what's right, patch, firewalls, endpoint protection, and they can't get you right away, they're going to go to the next actor. They're going to go to that next company. So don't be the target that's easy. Make it a little difficult, and then maybe you won't be the target.
Fantastic.
Michelle, okay, now I'm good.
We want to thank you for doing this for us, and we look forward to possibly seeing you at our Middle Tennessee Cyber Conference, which we'll announce that date. There will be a link down below our video.